You are listening to the Leadership Vision podcast, sharing our expertise in the discovery, practice, and implementation of a strengths-based approach to people, teams, and culture. For more resources about developing your strengths, the strengths of your team, or the strengths of your entire organization, click the link in the show notes or the video description, or you can visit us on the web at leadershipvisionconsulting.com. Hello, everyone. It's Nathan Freeberg. Welcome back to the Leadership Vision podcast. It is the 4th of July in the United States. Happy 4th of July. As you can tell from my very patriotic shirt that I'm wearing, I got this a couple years ago when a group of us went to Target or somewhere like Target and bought all these really corny 4th of July t-shirts that we wear once a year today, the 4th of July. And we don't really have a new episode for you today, but I did want to read something to you that I wrote 10 years ago that I think is very applicable to everything going on right now. It is actually from this old website that I had that was focused on running. A lot of us at Leadership Vision are runners. We do 5Ks to marathons and everything in between. And I had written this and published it in July, well, right after the 4th of July, 2012. And I just think it's very applicable to us today. And it's about change, specifically adjusting to unexpected change. And I share kind of 3 tips that I think will help you evaluate how you can do that, how you can adjust to change. And what's so interesting as I stumbled upon this and reread it and thought this would make a good podcast is how you can insert so many life transitions into the context of what for me was going to be running a half marathon. This is before kids, so I could insert all my kids into here. This is before COVID, so you could insert that. This is before a couple different job changes. You could do that. A move, you could do that. So I'm literally going to read this to you, and I want you to be thinking about what are some of those unexpected changes that have come up in your life, and how have you adapted to them if it's one in the past, and then perhaps if it's one coming up, or if you don't have something specific, maybe just how could you think about adjusting to change for something when that comes up for you? So, all right, here we go. Adjusting to unexpected change. I run a half dozen road races or so every year. I have my training plan and goal times in place well before I start. I register for races early and immediately build a 12-week training schedule into my life. Yeah, this is definitely pre-kids. Now, a few years ago, so this is like 2000, 10, my plans were suddenly thrown out the window when extreme heat changed my half marathon into a 5-miler. Now, I love running the Red, White, and Boom half marathon. This was also on the 4th of July back in Minneapolis, hence why I'm putting this out today on the 4th of July in 2022. Now, I love running the Red, White, and Boom half marathon because it's on the 4th of July, it's in my neighborhood, or was at the time, and it's a fun race in the middle of summer. Now, you can imagine my lack of boom, that's a pretty corny dad joke, when I read the email that they sent stating the 3rd annual Red, White, and Boom TC Half Marathon course has been shortened to 5 miles due to dangerous heat conditions. How crazy is that? Even current heat conditions here in Portland have been kind of dangerous. Seriously, I paid for 13.1 miles, not 5. I've been training for 13.5 miles, not 5. I was set to break my previous best time at 13.1 miles. How do I even pace a 5-miler? Now, in leadership, as in running, inevitably you'll encounter unexpected change. The only constant is that there is no constant. Now, despite my meticulous planning, things always come up during a training cycle that forces me to adapt. Or you could read that things always come up during a insert your thing here that force you to adapt. I think I'm especially good at adapting when necessary because of my strength of adaptability. There's a link in the show notes if you want to learn more about that. It allows me to go with the flow even when things do not go as planned. Now, in leadership, you'll find yourself in many unpredictable situations and face questions that you don't really know how to answer. Now, rather than let that derail you, here are 3 things that I have found helpful when facing uncertainty. And again, I wrote this back in 2012, and this is all still very applicable. So, number 1, how long before I need to react to the change? In the book Great by Choice by Jim Collins, he writes, sometimes acting too fast increases risk, and sometimes acting too slow increases risk. The critical question is, how much time before your risk profile changes? Fast decisions aren't always good, he says. How much time do you need? How much time do you have before you need to make a decision? Is it a day? Is it a month? Is it a year? Now, in the case of this race that I trained for so long ago, I only had 2 days, just over 48 hours before I was going to be racing. There wasn't much I could do to change the outcome of that race in that period of time. I don't know about you, but the last couple of years, we've had not a lot of time to adjust to change, but knowing what that is helps you plan. It helps you look to the future to say, again, if I've got a day to change this, there's probably not much I can do. If I know a change is going to come in 3 months, then you have more opportunity to plan and anticipate it. Number 2, what goals do I need to change? Now, it's unrealistic for you to keep the same goals and expectations when they're no longer realistic. I certainly couldn't expect the same results from a 5-miler as a half marathon, so I adjusted my pace based on what I knew of my ability. When a target has shifted, a self-aware leader knows how to compensate accordingly. Maybe a deadline has changed or resources have been cut. If you don't adjust, you'll be setting yourself up for disappointment, disaster, or even failure. So again, think about what goals do you need to change when something comes up. Deadlines are a great one to use in this example because those seem to be changing all of the time. Number 3, make a decision. Do you suffer from paralysis by analysis? I know I do sometimes. When things change, sometimes we can't or won't act differently. After you've assessed the new environment, measured your options, and reevaluated your goals, step into action. And don't be afraid of the unknown. Now, I think this is maybe the most profound point I make in this whole post is that when things do change, you do have to make a decision. You have to take all the information, the best information you have available, and make the best decision you have available to you at that time. Don't be afraid of the unknown. Don't be afraid to step into action. You might need to make another decision later based on new information, but you have to go into that. Now, I hadn't raced at the time. I hadn't done a 5-mile race since college. It was about 10 years even before that. So I looked at this as an adventure to do something new. And the key thing is that you do act. Now, not everyone is as adaptable as I am, or as I would like to be all of the time. Maybe you heard those questions or you're reading those questions and you still find it difficult to adjust on the fly. Well, this is when partnering with someone can be really helpful. Someone who's maybe more adaptable than you are, or someone who can just give you, like a different perspective on the situation. This is also why that we at Leadership Vision are constantly trying to build strong teams, because where your strengths end, maybe another person's can begin. And you can work together to achieve a new adjusted goal or tackle this unexpected change in a way that you never thought was possible before. Now, in the post here, the thing that I wrote way back in 2012, I mentioned 3 things that the race organizers did that I appreciated. They made a tough, quick decision, which is the first point I mentioned. They adjusted their expectations and goals of what this race was going to be, and they communicated to the participants, and then they just put on a fantastic race. They also, apparently, I don't remember this, but they gave us a $25 credit towards another race, and it ended up being fun, even though I think I got a little bit of heat stroke. So what I want to leave you with here from this podcast is actually something that I learned much more recently. I guess reread this. So there's this book by author Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. And it's this whole idea. He does a lot of work in writing in the idea of Stoic philosophy. And the idea behind the obstacle is the way is that the only way, obstacles come up in our life. This idea of unexpected change is a constant, right? That's what I said earlier. Like constant is there's no constant, except perhaps for change. And when obstacles and things come up that we weren't expecting, how can we use those to actually move forward? And so this very brief little quote I'm going to read. If something prevents you from getting to your destination on time, then this is a chance to practice patience. If an employee makes an expensive mistake, this is a chance to teach a valuable lesson. If a computer glitch erases your work, it's a chance to start over with a clean slate. If someone hurts you, it's a chance to practice forgiveness. If something is hard, it's a chance to get stronger. Try this line of thinking and see whether there is a situation in which one could not find some virtue to practice or derive some benefit. There isn't one. Every impediment can advance action in some form or another. And why I like that, or why I wanted to leave you with that, is because I feel like, I'm 10 years older since when I wrote that. And what I'm really trying to do in my life is more of that, not to, maybe when really hard things come up, to just sweep them under the rug and say, oh, I guess I just need to be patient. But how do we use all these obstacles to, I stand by what I wrote. Yes, adjust your goals. Yes, make a decision. Yes, figure all that out. But as leaders, as people, as humans, how can we say that these obstacles, these moments of unexpected change, when they come up, how do we say, this isn't a crisis, this isn't the end of the road, this is an opportunity to do something different, to learn a new lesson, to be taught something, or to teach something that can then help move us forward, that can help add to what we're doing. I mean, so many of the great inventions and breakthroughs in the world, society, have come because of people pushing through what others may have thought were obstacles, or others may have thought were the end of the road. I mean, my iPhone that's sitting right here, this Gorilla Glass, I don't know if that's what it's still called, but this glass was a mistake, and the company who made it was couldn't figure out a use for it until Steve Jobs said, actually, we're going to use it for iPhones and whatever. Anyway, that's just a silly example, but I think you get the point here, that unexpected change comes. How can we, on this 4th of July, how can we use these things in our roles of positions of influence to help move forward whatever it is that we're moving forward? So that's what I wanted to share today. I hope that you have a great 4th of July holiday. I know not all of our listeners are from the United States, but hopefully this is a relaxing time of year for you, regardless of where you live. And we'll be back with new episodes next week. Thank you for listening to the Leadership Vision podcast, sharing our expertise in the discovery, practice, and implementation of a strengths-based approach to people, teams, and culture. For more resources about developing your strengths of your team, or the strengths of your entire organization, you can click the link in the show notes or the video description, or visit us on the web at leadershipvisionconsulting.com. My name is Nathan Freeberg, and on behalf of our entire team, thanks for listening.